Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another one of the Matheson History Museum's lectures. And we are delighted this day to have one of our favorite people here, Miss Lizzie Jenkins. Many of you know Lizzie. There she is. Hello, Lizzie.
Hello.
She is a delightful woman. She has been an educator. She has been a lecturer. She is a storyteller, and she is the head of the Real Rosewood Foundation. Lizzie, we are delighted to have you with us today. We're looking forward to your stories and the things that you have to tell us with open ears. So thank you for being here very much. And also thank you to our partners, the Cotton Club. And Lizzie, go for it.
Thank you very much, Dixie, for having me.
Thank you.
I am honored.
I just have a couple of logistical things.
Sorry.
Before we get started, I don't mean to cut you off. But I just wanted to say to those of you who are watching through Zoom and those who are watching live on Facebook, we will be having Mrs. Jenkins giving her presentation. And then at the end of her presentation, we will have a question and answer opportunity. So you can use the chat box or the question and answer feature on Zoom if you're watching there. Or if you're watching on Facebook, you can type your questions into the comments section. And I will be monitoring those to share those at the end of the presentation. I just wanted to say that this program is sponsored in part by Visit Gainesville, Alachua County, Florida, and by the Department of State, Division of Cultural Affairs, the Florida Council of the Arts and Culture, and the state of Florida. So we're really grateful to all of our sponsors. And now I will turn it over to Mrs. Jenkins. So let me go ahead and pull up her PowerPoint and we can get started. All right, take it away.
Okay, thank you again, Dixie and Caitlin, for having me. And I'm honored to be your guest today on the Matheson Museum Zoom. Okay, social justice, warrior women. I'm going to be talking about women of strength, Rosewood, and other events or challenges that I have encountered or explored during my 30 years of research. But anyway, without question, 2020 will go down in the history books as a year marked by challenges. Challenges that we will never forget. One of them is social justice, quiet justice, resolutions for change, and truth and reconciliation. Quietly, I have walked to school when I was a little girl, 3 miles each way, believing I would earn my ranks inside a system representing equality. I'm still walking, and my feet are telling the same story. Not many changes, but I expect you to help me level the playing field. Next. A young man from Salt Lake City, Utah, drove to Archer to meet me in September. He was so impressed and so enthused about Rosewood, he decided to go back to his hometown in Utah and start a writing program. And in this program, he decided to write about me. And supposedly that is my poetry. That is how he remembered me. And I know you have read it, so I'm not going to read it for you. But as I said, at the very end, my last sentence, I was born Lizzie Polly Why me? Why was I selected to do this work? I don't know. But for 77 years, I have lived Rosewood horrific story or horrific history. Next. This is the historic house of John Wright, John and Mary Wright, who were the Rosewood store merchants in 1923 when the Rosewood Massacre happened. However, this house was built by Charles M. Jacobs Sr. around 1855. He was a contractor. He married Mary Jane Jacobs before she married John Wright. And to this union, one son, Charles Jr., Charles Jacob Jr. was born. And during that time period, Jacobs owned much of Rosewood and Levy County property. Why? Because people didn't buy property. And when people tell me, or when you hear people talk about these two-story houses owned by Blacks, it's not quite true. Okay, don't want to offend anyone. However, it is not true, and I am so sorry. Thought I had turned this phone off. Excuse me, please. However, Jacobs owned much of the property in Levy County. And why? It's because people didn't buy property. People didn't have to buy property. And the reason I say that, because during my research, I discovered my great-great-grandfather in Cedar Key, age 1. I never was able to find his parents, and today I'm still searching for his parents, but he was there. And as I continued to search the census, I found that he owned 159 acres of property. And that was government property that was given to him. Why 159 acres? Because they could not own more than 159 acres, but up to. And I assume Jacobs and other people own property in Levy County because it was given to them and it was signed by the 21st president of the United States, Chester Allen. Don't remember his name right now. President Chester Allen Arthur. And I have a document wherein he signed the 159 acres over to my great-great-grandfather. However, he lost it. He didn't lose it. It was taken from him. And I'm not going to talk about that today, but his property was taken. But I want you to know, when people tell me and ask you, well, what about the houses in Rosewood? Most of them rented, okay? And I do have a document that I'm not going to share today, but it will be in my book, wherein a transaction that happened with the property in Rosewood, but it was after 1923. And I just assumed that because of white privileges, Jacobs was one of the players, and they got the job done and did about what they wanted to do. However, he was the post office master. However, there was not a post office in Rosewood. There was a mail drop, but Jacobs, Charles Jacob, the owner of this house, the builder of this house, was the first postmaster. Next. So I assume you realize it is a picture of me. And in 1992, I started my search for justice, for Rosewood justice, at the request of my mom. And it continues today. I still go back to the Brunson Courthouse if I have a question. And by the way, that's an old Levy County picture of the Brunson Courthouse. And when I have questions that I don't understand or I need to know more about what I am searching, I return to the courthouse. Next. And here I am on April 23rd, 1923, second floor, tax collector, basement, official records, doing my research. And in walked a group of white men. And I was sitting at this table with my head down, researching. I didn't look up. My heart dropped because the only thing I could see circling the table were feet and men in camouflage outfits. I could smell the smoke. I was too afraid to look up. They didn't know it, or they knew it and they ignored it. But after a couple of circles around the table, they left. 30 minutes later, I said, well, I better get out of here. And I did. So I had made copies to bring home. And that's what I always do when I go and do my research. I make copies, but I had to pay for these copies. And they were too important for me to leave. So when I went up to pay for them, the young lady said, she gave me the cost, the total cost, and she said, and ma'am, what is your name? And I said, Elizabeth Pinchachatter. She said, will you spell that for me? And of course I spelled it. And by the time I finished spelling it, she said, will you spell it again? Because I don't remember. And I didn't remember either how I spelled it. But anyway, I spelled it. And if you can see the document from the courthouse, I gave a false name. And the reason I did that, because I was afraid. I didn't know if anyone was going to search me and try to find out who I was. I couldn't wait to get home to tell my mom, Mom, you will not believe what happened to me today. Okay, she listened. I said, these men came in this courthouse when I was in the basement. And my heart just went through my chest, Mom, I said, and I thought about the treatment, the mistreatment of my aunt. My mom said, oh, okay, take a few days and go back. And I just thought she was absolutely crazy. She was sending her baby back to work. And I was afraid. Next. So I want you to meet some important women in my life. I call them quiet justice because they have always worked for justice. They were women of strength. They were my women. They are all deceased, but they still live today in my heart. And they worked in they worked in Archer. In fact, all of them are from Archer, but they knew and lived the Rosewood massacre through my aunt and with my aunt. And this is my legacy. And they are the best. Next. Of course, I'm going to say they are the best because they are related to me. 4 generations of historians, and I am proud to have these photos. My great-grandmother, I never knew her. She was born in 1826 and died in, and you can read it, 1926. However, I love that woman. She came here from Parchman, Mississippi. James Parchman was her slave owner. She was stolen or kidnapped from her parents' home in Parchman, Mississippi in 1839, and she walked from Parchman, Mississippi to Jackson, Mississippi, where she was auctioned off. And they walked to Archer. That's how I got to Archer. She was enslaved, but because of her, I am able to tell you this story. Okay, I believe her name may have been Lizzie Polly because she said, make sure you keep that name in our family. And I believe her name was Lizzie Polly, and her number I know was for sure was 19. And my mom was and is still the light of my life. And of course, Lizzie Polly Brown Sams Jenkins. I think everybody knows who she is. Anyway, these folks are in my blood. My history is in my blood. Next. These are the same people, but I had to go back and include the men in my life. Top left is her husband, my great-grandmother, Julianne Sam's husband, Richard Sam, to the right. my dad, your Robinson. And bottom left is my grandfather, who is Grandma Liz's husband, Charlie Brown. And I tell some people that he passed for white. He invaded the KKK. And when my great-grandparents, when he asked for her in marriage, they said to him, no, because you're too white. However, because he was white enough to work on the train as a box car, whatever they're called, can't remember right now, he decided to elope. They eloped in 1886. I am so sorry. Yes, it was 1886 or 88. Went to Chattel, Florida, got married. Okay, because her parents had said no. Next, that's enough for right now about that. Okay, Mom and me are the storytellers. And for the love of Mom, I broke Jim Crow laws, and I hope to break some more laws as I continue to do my research. But that's my mom. That's an article that was written by Bob Orendorfer, who used to work at the Gainesville Sun. And there have been several articles written about Rosewood because I have done a lot of research. Next. This is a picture of my aunt and her husband, the Carriers, Aaron and Mahalda Carrier. And when we first started, the first article we did in 1993, we were questioned, how can you prove that my aunt Mahalda was a Rosewood resident? Mom say, well, go to the courthouse and look in the marriage records and find the marriage certificate, and that will let you know that she was in Levy County. And they were married December 19, 1917. Next. And he was a World War I serviceman. Okay, didn't stay very long because he had this beautiful young wife back home. So as quickly as he could get discharged honorably, he did. But he did, don't remember what else. He did work as a cross-tie cutter. That was his job. Next. This is the Rosewood survivors, a picture of the Rosewood survivors and descendants. And they came to Gainesville in 1993 and participated in the MLK Week. Thanks, Rodney Long. Next. Okay. David Levy Yulee was a plantation owner. Really mean, really mean to people. However, my aunt was owned by enslaved. She was enslaved by slave owners. But because of my hard work, when they sent out an application in 1999 seeking members or people, outstanding people, to be a part of the Great Floridian 2000, I submitted her name. However, I did not have any documents. So what I did, I called Secretary of State Catherine Harris' office, and I said to them, look, my aunt suffered the agony of defeat in the Rosewood Massacre, and I want her to receive this Great Floridians 2000 plaque, but I don't have any information. She said, one of the ladies called me and said to me, Mrs. Jenkins, send me what you have, the history of what you have. And that is exactly what I did. I sent the history, as much of it as I could think of at the time, because I was near the deadline. And sure enough, they were kind enough to believe me, and they included her in this magnificent giveaway. So to me, she equals to him. He had all of the money, but look how he got it. He earned it by selling people and free label and all that kind of stuff. Next. My family, I'm so proud of my family. 2015, I got a call from Polk County. And the young man said to me, I'm looking for Henry Brown. I said, oh, that's my grandfather's brother. He said, I don't believe it. I said, it's true. He said, do you know of Lawrence Brown? I said, never heard of him before. He said, that's his son. And he told me the story of Lawrence Brown. Lawrence Brown used to live here in Archer and left here because they accused him of voting illegally. So he relocated in Bartow, Polk County. And believe it or not, when I found him, he too had been honored with a 2000 Floridians plaque, Great Floridian 2000 plaque. And they both are listed in historical marker. However, his historical marker belongs to him. It's his marker. And I'm working on one for Mahalda. Next. These are the people behind the sponsorship of the historical marker for my aunt. And it hangs today on the depot, the train depot where she exited on January 4th, 1923. Next. Okay, Jim Crow laws impose racial segregation during what is known as the Jim Crow era. And that's not me, but however, one day we were going to Lake City, traveling to Lake City in the back of the truck. My dad was the driver. He was in the front, my mom. And we stopped at a store in Brantford. And of course, I wanted some water. And of course, it said white only. However, I was not old enough to read, so I decided to get a drink. Wrong thing. Bam. Head was pushed down to the faucet. Damage a tooth. Next. I never forgot that. Today, I'll tell you that later. But anyway, I started and I have been working on the struggle for freedom for years. Before I left home, my parents made sure I became a member of the NAACP. That is my college I attended from 1957 to 1961. I rode every year for 4 years. I mean, every weekend almost when they allowed me to come home. For 4 years to St. Augustine, and I always sat in the back of the bus. So on the right top, that's me with that beautiful smile sitting on the back of the bus. And we had to, it was a policy, colored seated in rear. And like I said, I've been fighting for years, long before Black Lives Matter, for justice. Next, I got to speed it up. Oh, and by the way, when I was in St. Augustine, when I attended the college there, we didn't decide, this young, fresh out of school dentist, Dr. Robert E. Haley, came to St. Augustine, and he organized the civil rights movement and took us without our permission down to St. Augustine lunch counter to sit in. Yes, I was involved in the sit-ins. I don't talk about it often because it's not pleasant to talk about it, but we were involved. Next. And this is the store, the F.W. Woolworth store sit-ins in 1960. I was a junior in college. And I am in this store, scared to death. Never been so scared in all the days of my life of the dogs and the KKK, and they had guns and all of the bad things. Next. And okay. And I talked about the KKK were involved in the civil rights movement. They were involved in everything. The Jim Crow lawless were involved in everything. And on December 31, 1922, they were in Gainesville having a celebration, good time. And that emblem or that picture on the right, it is taken from the Gainesville newspaper. So this is the picture that they portrayed when they were downtown Gainesville. And basically they came to town to intimidate people. It worked too. People were afraid. And since I'm talking about social justice, this is social injustice. And as I said, I will continue to work to see if we can't right a wrong. And when I say right, I spell it W-R-I-T-E, right a wrong. That's my goal. Next. And I hope you work with me. Okay, moving on into Sumner. After December 31, 1922, the picture you just saw with the KKK, they decided at the request of James Taylor, who is Fannie Taylor's husband. Fannie Taylor is the lady that triggered the Rosewood massacre. James Taylor worked at the sawmill, and every morning at 4 a.m., he would leave home, go to the sawmill to oil the machinery. And the picture on the left is one of the pieces that he oiled. And the center picture is the sawmill of Sumner. And well, you know what's on the right. But anyway, he was the foreman, and he would leave, as I said, to go to work at 4, and he would come back every morning. He would return home for breakfast at 6 a.m. But on this particular morning, January 1, 1923, when he returned home, he found a bruised Fannie Taylor who lied and said a Black man assaulted her, which ended up pointing fingers at my uncle. Real bad situation. And I hope I have enough time to say this, but when she lied on him, the KKK went to his house. And the reason he went to his house, because Fannie Taylor was dating a white man her lover was white from Gulf Hammock, and he would carpool every day to Rosewood with his friend. His friend went to work with James Taylor at 4 a.m. However, the lover didn't have to report to work until 6 a.m. So he had 2 hours to horse around. So he spent his time horsing around with Fannie Taylor. So when James returned for work at 6 a.m., the guy had gone. He had gone and escaped to Rosewood. And he went straight to my uncle's house because he knew my Uncle Aaron. My Uncle Aaron was a Mason, and so was he. He did the Masonic knock at the door. Aaron jumped up, ran to the door. Who is it? Who is it? Scared to death when he opened the door and saw this white face looking in on him. He and his wife, both my aunts, sat straight up in bed. I understand when they heard this rap at the door. So Aaron came back to the bedroom, put on clothes, and my aunt asked him, she knew he was intimidated. She asked him, what happened? What's wrong? And he mumbled something. However, he went next door. He got his cousin, Sam Carter. They put this guy, her lover, in the wagon and took him to Gulf Hammock, where he was from. He was safe. Okay. Next. I know y'all are going to have some questions. So after they took, after they dropped him off in Gulf Hammock and they returned to Rosewood. So the mob knew, they didn't know at the time, James Taylor brought in dogs, tracking dogs, and the scent took them to Aaron's house. Okay, so they knew Aaron was involved. So when the dogs left Aaron's house, they went to Sam Carter's house. However, the two families were not at home because they had all migrated or gone to Aunt Sarah's house. Aunt Sarah Carrier was the mother of Sylvester Carrier, and everybody would hang out at her house because she was a pillar of the community, and they would hang out there for safety. So they went to Aaron, back to Aunt Sarah's house. That's where they found Aaron, took him out, put him in the car, beat him, okay, dragged him to Sumner from Rosewood and beat him nearly to death until the Sheriff Walker arrived and said, don't. I'll finish the end off. Throw his in the car. and he took him to Gainesville, put him in jail in Gainesville with Sheriff Ramsey, and said, you better not tell anybody he is here. You better protect him. And for 6 months, he protected Aaron, and nobody knew he was there. And I'm not going to tell you today why, how we found him there, but we did. But anyway, they went back that same night because they were so upset because they knew Sam Carter was involved. So they went back to Aunt Sarah's house looking for Sylvester Carrier and Sam Carter. Couldn't find them. Somebody yelled, where is the school teacher? They took her down a dark, by the railroad track, but it was in Sumner. And there she was confronted with all 400 KKK men. Approximately, the newspaper said that's how many came to town. She was surrounded by them. And they harassed her. Where were your husband last night? And she told them 15 times, if not 200 times. He was at home with me in bed all night long. So they didn't want to hear any more of that because they felt like she was arrogant. Knowing her, she probably had gotten fed up. So the last time they asked her, where was your husband last night? And she said, he was at home with me in bed all night long. And if you want to, you can kill me. And sure enough, they put guns to her head. However, they did not kill her. Somebody said, let's rape the bitch. And I didn't intend to say that. But anyway, that's exactly what they did. Scarred for life. Next. Remembering Rosewood. And the purpose of that www.rosewoodflorida.com, in the event you want to donate to our foundation, to our scholarship, or to the museum, you may go there. And we do have a website. Please visit. Next. Okay, all of my work is paid off. May 4, 1994, Governor Lawrence Charles signed the Rosewood Bill. May 4, 2004, Governor Jeb Bush came to Rosewood at my request and dedicated the historical marker. And if you can see, that's my picture on the right. And in between us is a Rosewood descendant. Survivor. And that's Governor Bush looking and reading the sign. Okay, next. And this is when he came to Rosewood. And approximately 500 people were there on May 4, 2004. And this is the historical marker that I wrote, and I had to call them 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times, a bunch of times, in order to get them to listen and let them know I was serious about, I need a marker. We need to know that something bad happened in Rosewood, and they didn't want to do that. But I continued to call. Okay, it will be $2,400. Okay, all right, get started. 3 weeks later, hadn't heard anything. I called back. Well, it'll be $1,200. Okay. Call back the third time. They say, well, Mrs. Jenkins, we have decided to do it for you at no cost. All right. And you know what else I said? Thank you. Next. This is a proclamation that he sent at my request, the Governor Jeb Bush sent, because we have held a total of 6 peace and healings in Rosewood. And I knew he could not come or was not going to attend. However, he sent a couple of staff members so they can get our information to know and to see how we organize for our peace and healing, so that when they came to Rosewood to erect the marker, they would have an idea of what to do and how to do it. Next. Very nice letter. And by the way, I sent letters to all of the elected officials, and all of them, and most of them replied, and all of them said, I'm sorry, we appreciate it, thank you. In other words, but we're not coming. And I have been working in silent justice, silent justice, quiet justice all of my life. And this is a tribute to our ancestors. And I have continued to do that. And I had people on the program. We sing. People have asked, well, what do you do when you go there? We sing and we praise God and we pray. Okay. And we're still praying today for justice. Next. Losing my voice. As I have said, I have earned many news articles, and you probably have seen this one. Next. And the last one, the last peace and healing ceremony that we did was January 1, 2020, Rosewood Day in Rosewood. We lit 5 candles for the 5 survivors. I'm sorry, for the 5 victims. We left our angels, 5 angels in the tree, which is adjacent to the marker. You don't see the marker, but it is behind us, I believe. Next. And as I said, I have been researching and traveling and doing everything, researching, well, not researching, retracing massacres and riots. And I went to Tulsa and I met Dr. John Franklin Hope, who is the son of Jr., John Franklin Hope Jr., the son of John Hope Sr., who was an attorney during the Tulsa riots. They bombed his office. However, he continued to practice under a tent. And the letter on the right is a letter from John Franklin Jr. that wrote me, and we talked about Rosewood. And a couple of years ago, I met John Franklin Hope Sr. in the middle. And that's a picture of him. And he's a director for the newest museum in Washington, D.C. Can't think of it right now, the name of it, but you know what I'm talking about. Next. So John Wright and his wife were heroes when Rosewood was invaded, but he never had a decent headstone. His wife and 3 children that died, all 3 died before the age of 5, have nice headstones. However, there was no one left to do a stone for him. So this year I got a call from a young man, and I always get these calls, people wanting to do something, and he started a GoFundMe, okay? And we raised enough money to get a headstone for John Wright, the store merchant, and I was delighted to go down and help erect this much needed, well-deserved headstone for John Wright, who saved my aunt's life and the lives of, helped save, and the lives of all of the Rosewood survivors. Next. This is the artist of this picture, Pedro Germain. And this work has been everywhere. Last year, during the month of Black History Month, it was housed at the Tampa International Airport for a month. So we're getting the word out, and we want you to think about how you can help us to get the message out also, so that we can bring history home. Next, almost time. Okay, each year we give a Mahalda Gussie Brown Carrier scholarship. We make certain it's diverse. The young lady in the middle, the white young lady, is a graduate of Cedar Key High School. We make certain 2 of the scholarships from Levy County, 3 from Alachua County, because Levy County is where the massacre happened, and Alachua County is where they regrouped, relocated. Next. And that's the picture. Okay, Congressman Ted Yoho has been battle-like in the time of battle. He has been there, very supportive 2016, no, I'm sorry, 2014, I was just worn out, tired, and I needed help. And I have been needing help for a long time. So I said, this man is a Republican. I said, but damn it, I'm going to go and knock on his door anyway. So I called. Kat answered the phone because she was working for him. And I made an appointment and I went there. And he welcomed me in and I told him what my plans were. I wanted to build a museum, a Rosewood museum. On October 2nd this year, he filed a bill. He introduced the bill to make Rosewood a landmark. And this is where we are going to need you all. We have the information on our website where you can go there. We have a sample letter where you can help write letters to help us get this bill, get this Rosewood landmark, make it a reality. Next. And our state attorney, Bill Cervone, is the chairperson. And he is also a board member, and he has been a board member of Rosewood since 2010. Next. We are going to rebuild Rosewood. And we have 29 acres here, and we plan to do it on this property. And we are going to build the houses without electricity, without plumbing, indoor plumbing. So if you want to volunteer and build a house all by yourself or work with your group, you have our permission. We are going to make this a reality. We are going to bring them from the dead and put them back here in Rosewood, these houses. And then we'll open it up for school children and adults to do field trips. We have animals here also. Next. Also, we did a program, a virtual program on my birthday. It was a fundraiser. We're going to re-show this in December on January 1, 2021, which will be the 98th anniversary. It's on our website. We will keep you reminded. Next. And I don't recognize these lovely, beautiful people, but I know they are part of the Matheson Center. I have enjoyed speaking with you. Hope I haven't taken too much of your time, and I wish each of you a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Thanks, Dixie and Caitlin, for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us again. We always enjoy having you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen. So if you are watching, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them into the chat box or the Q&A box. And I'm going to go check and see if there's anything on Facebook. It looks like we have about 15 minutes for questions if anybody has anything they would like to know from Mrs. Jenkins. Martha Davis would like to know if January 1st is your birthday.
No, October 25th is my birthday.
So that was the day of the gala, and then the January 1st is the anniversary of the massacre.
Yes.
So we have another question. It looks like this might be a multi-part. This is part one. What do you see as justice?
Growing up, justice to me was my dad and mom protecting us from injustice. Justice is really broad. Everybody, but they want to know my definition, right? Doing whatever is right, doing the right thing. treating people equally, the same, not discriminate. The only thing that divides us is the color of our skin. And I live in two skins because my great grandfather, I was told my grandfather's father was white. Okay, so I don't know, I never saw him, but it's oral history. And I believe it. Okay, so as far as justice, for me, I love treating people right. I have been working to do the right thing forever. I know what is wrong. It's not a good feeling. And I tell people, to me, if you can feel it, you can understand it. So when I was talking a few minutes ago, if you understood it and felt what I was saying, then you understand what justice is all about. It's justice to me, doing the right thing. I don't need to say anything else. Just doing what is right. Like today, feeding these people that's losing their houses, giving them money, okay, to buy food. That's part of being justified in my book. Next, part 2.
Let's see. The next question is from someone else, and they would like to know, how many homes would you like to build, and is the goal to maintain the historical architecture of the homes/historical district?
How many homes?
Mm-hmm.
17. Okay, let me back up. I don't know how many homes were in Rosewood, and the number 17 came from we had to provide information in order to qualify for reparation in 1994, 94, 95. And there were 17 different families. And what we want to do, if we can get 17 houses, if we can get contractors or construction companies and lumber companies to donate the property, it would be a project for school kids that need to, and college kids that need hours, community service hours, to help us build these houses. And we want to invite the families that was compensated with the Rosewood reparation. We want to invite them to decorate the houses. And what was the part 2 of that question?
It was, is the goal to maintain the historical architecture?
Yes. Yes.
So on a kind of similar note to that question, could you tell us a little bit more about the building project of the homes? And would that be a single building that would house the museum, or is this several homes in the style of that era? So you've kind of addressed this a little bit, but give you an opportunity.
No, that would be
to talk about
several homes. Okay, and in addition, we will build a museum also. However, but we just want to start, we want to show, if we don't build but one house next year, we want to get started building houses to show people that we are serious about leaving a legacy. Okay, and the museum will house museum artifacts that people can donate, or, from that era. And I don't remember what else I was going to say.
We actually have a comment from Stephanie Birch, the board chair of the foundation, and she says, we will be looking at existing research to establish a modified and scaled down historic village. The goal will be to build a reconstructed town over time, structure by structure.
Thank you, Stephanie. She's my backbone. She works at the University of Florida too. She didn't tell you that.
Somebody else has asked if you have talked to Habitat for Humanity at all as potentially support for building.
No, but that's a great idea. We will. Right,
Worth a
Stephanie?
shot. No, that was not from Stephanie. That was from Martha Davis.
Okay. Hi, Martha.
All right, so I think that about covers everything I see on that subject. So going back to that first question that I said was a multi-parter, part 2 has come in, and they would like to know, how do you feel about the reparations?
The most important thing about the reparation was acknowledgement. The amount was small. Like in my family, there were 10, my aunt had 10 descendants, 10 descendants, and we got about $20,000 among 10 descendants. My mother's check was $3,333.33. I didn't get anything because my mom was living, but I worked like hell to make sure they were recognized. But as I said, acknowledgement.
So looking at acknowledgement and making sure that people know that this is something that happened, how can we put the histories of Rosewood, Newberry, and other local stories in Alachua County so that they can be accessible to educators and schools for teaching the comprehensive history of this area?
Ask Stephanie to respond because she is on the task force for education in Alachua County.
All right. So I will wait for her to hopefully send in something that I can share with the group.
But we are working as a team as we speak. Also, we are working with the Ocoee, the history of Ocoee, and Senator Bracy has already passed the bill 1213, House Bill 1213, to have the Ocoee riot history included in the curriculum, Florida school curriculum. And Senator Bracy is also has agreed to work with us and help Rosewood get to that point so that we can be acknowledged. So we have our fish lines out there. Okay.
We have another suggestion.
Good.
Alachua County Schools has a construction program, and it would be great to see them build a house. So this person has said that Shannon Ritter with the school board would be a contact for that.
Really? I didn't know that. Will you have them to send that information to me?
Sure, I will copy down this information and I'll share that with you, Lizzie.
Okay.
Let me go ahead.
Can everybody hear me? Yes. Okay.
So we have the comment from Stephanie, and she says that we would love to work with the newly founded Alachua County African American Historical Society. Also, Jordan Marlowe, Mayor of Newberry and local teacher, is a foundation board member.
Okay.
So we have somebody else has asked if there's a possibility of purchasing the right home.
Oh no, they just sold it April of this year, and the young man and his young wife and their young 5-month-old baby moved from Kansas, and they are going to keep the house forever. They love it. And they gave me some items from the house, 2 chairs from the John Wright's house, and wallpaper and a lot of newspaper articles. Okay. So no, they will not sell.
Okay. So this is a question that I think is more for me than you, asking if the Matheson Museum has any digital archives and if we will be assisting with grant or donor support for Rosewood. So that is something that we are, definitely happy to help in any way that we can. We are also a very small organization that is on donations and grant funding. So we don't really have any funding to share, but we are absolutely happy to share, expertise and knowledge in any way that we can. We're really lucky to have Mrs. Jenkins on our board of directors, and it's a valuable partnership that we definitely would like to continue.
Yes.
And then we have another question. Do you have any ideas about how to address the attitude that led to the Rosewood destruction? This attitude still simmers and periodically raises its ugly head, as you well know.
Do I have any what? What was the first one? Any ideas?
Hold on, let me find it again. Any ideas about how to address the attitude that led to the Rosewood destruction?
What really led to Rosewood destruction? What's the name of that movie theater? The Royale movie theater did a free screening for us and invited the family members. My mother was still living at the time. My mother was 20, still single, living at home when it happened in 1923. So they invited us to the movie, and she was a spokesperson after we saw the movie. So they asked my mom, Miss Robinson, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate the John Singleton movie? And that's the movie I'm talking about. She said, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, I give it a 7, which is good, So she followed up at age 93. She's always told me she said whatever she wanted to say at that age because she had earned it. So she followed up with the most 2 important things about the movie. It let people know it happened, and it let people know that white women will lie on Black men. And everybody went, and she said, of course. And it's still happening today. So the attitude then, and now and about Rosewood, lies will get you in trouble. And it's so easy for people to lie on Black men. And they are shot in the back. I'm a member of Changing the Conversation of the Florida Sheriff Association. And each year when I renew, they send me decals. And I always ask for extra decals. And I give those extra decals to my young Black nephews, my young nephews. And I have one on my car too. In the event they stop one of my nephews, they will see that decal and probably think before they attack. So I don't know what make why people have a tendency to hate. I don't know. It's in their blood. And when I went to Rosewood, I did meet at the time the Scoggins were living in the house. And I asked the Scoggin, Doyle Scoggin, a retired Navy, I asked him if he had been living in 1923, what would he have done to prevent Rosewood massacre? And he wrote very detailed letter. I have it, it's going in my book too. But basically he said, people are like pack animals. And if one animal does something, the other animal will participate, knowing it's wrong. And I'm not stating it the way it was said, but these people have animal mentality, is what he was saying. So that's what happened, I guess, when people, I don't know, I can't answer that question because I don't live in that body. I don't live in that image. We will have to ask a person who thinks hatred. I know I didn't answer your question, but that's my best. answer.
It was a doozy of a question. There really is not an easy answer to that one. So we've got just a couple more questions and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. Someone would like to know if your mom is from Florida.
Yes, she is. And she was something else. And when I tell you my mother was something else, she used to tell me that about her father, because she would tell me things that Papa did. I call him Papa. I just couldn't believe it. I said, Mom, one day I said to her, I said, Mom, has Papa ever killed anyone? Because of the things she told me about him. She didn't hesitate. She said, heroes do what they have to do when they have to do it. And I didn't understand that until I got older, which meant, I don't know what it meant. But anyway, when I tell you my mother was something else, my mom was a lioness. She protected my dad because my dad was always afraid of white men. Because after the Rosewood massacre, they would hang out or come to our house because our aunt, who was on the run for 25 years after Rosewood, the conspirators, followed her. And she would come to the house sometime. And in a way, in an effort to intimidate my dad and make sure he didn't talk, because they didn't want anybody from Rosewood to talk and tell what had happened, he was afraid. But my mom was not afraid of anybody. I remember one day we were at the house. You didn't ask me this, playing in the yard in a Jeep. We lived at a dead end in a Jeep. And anytime someone, or we heard someone coming to our house, we knew coming down that dirt road, we knew they were coming down our house. And it was two white men in this Jeep. And they drove up and we were outside, the four of us, playing in the dirt, because I used to eat sand. And don't ask me why. I guess I don't know. But anyway, Mom came to the door, saw these men coming and said, get in this house. And we all jumped up and ran in the house and stood behind her at the door. They drove up and said, where's your husband? My mom said, put her hand in her bosom and said, out back. They didn't know if she was carrying a gun or not, but they left there. So when I said my mom was something else, was she born in Florida? Yes. And she carried a switchblade, if you all know what that is. And when we went to the store, you know, it was just bad. It was bad. I grew up in Jim Crow. It was bad. We had to step off the sidewalk if we met white people. We had to step off and let them, you know, stay on the sidewalk. So one day we went in the store, and this young man who owned the store got sassy, arrogant, disrespectful with my mom. And the next thing I knew, I heard something go click. I had by then learned the sound of that switchblade. Mom had pulled out her switchblade. She would protect her children and her husband. And yes, she is an Archian, and I miss her so much. Long answer. But we had to defend. And today, we still have to defend, because sometimes people will get arrogant and sassy and disrespectful with you, and you have to let them know, rope them in, let them know who you are. And the days for that, long gone. You can't say anything to me disrespectfully. And a lot of us feel the same way. So, next question.
So this is going to be, I think, the last question. And you've mentioned it in passing several times. But are you writing a book?
Yes. The book is finished, but not complete. And when I say that, a month ago, I keep getting calls. A month ago, I got a call from a man in Georgia. And he said to me, I don't know how they find my name and number. Miss Jenkins, he told me his name. I'm not going to share it. He said, Mary Wright Hall, and I didn't know she was a Hall, was my great-great-grandmother. I meant great-great-aunt. And he wants to talk to me about her life in Rosewood. And he has pictures he wants to share that I can use in my book. So that's why I say the book is finished but not complete. But I will promise you, next year I got to bring it bring closure. But I got to keep it long enough so that we can put some of these houses, pictures of some of these houses we built in it. Okay.
Right, so I think the last thing is somebody in the chat box has shared a quote from Maya Angelou that I think is pretty fitting. It says, "History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again," which I think really goes along well with what you've been trying to do with Rosewood.
I appreciate that, and send that to me too so I can put that in my book.
Absolutely. Do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share with us?
Just keep praying for me to keep, spread the word. So many people don't know about Rosewood and its impact on me. And I just want people to know for 28 years I've been doing this, and for 28 years, every day I do it. It's very painful. And when I get through, I am going, get in my bed in a fetal position and go to sleep. It's not easy telling the story, but I enjoy informing you all. I want you to know. Okay? And thank you. And you may give them my email address, the website, and they can get in contact with me. But if you have some money that you're not spending for Christmas, you may go to www.rosewoodflorida.com and donate. If it sounds like I am begging what this Terry Pendergrass said, and I know he's not the author of, I ain't too proud to beg, and you know it. Thank you very much. And please have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to share with us today. And thank you to everyone who was watching and all of the excellent questions. And I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. So have a good day, everyone.
Thank you very much.